Hi everyone and welcome back to another video. This is Mindy Eggen for Tailored Expressions, and in today's video we are going to take a look at the new Field Notes 2 card kit, and I'll also be creating 3 cards using the products from this kit. First we'll take a look at the supplies I'll be using, starting with the Sketchbook Bouquet stamp set, the splatter background, and there is also a masking stencil for that sketchbook bouquet, and we have a coordinating die. The inks I'm using are Oreo, Toffee. I have Earl Grey here, but I didn't end up using it. And then I have Pineapple, Lime Zest, and VersaMark. And the colors I'm using are from the Karin Markers. This is Egyptian Blue, Canary, Lime Green, Lilac, and Red Lilac. And this is Taylor's palette. Some additional supplies are the Circle Masking Stencil, Play the Angle Stencil. I also have white and black foam squares, some silver drip drops, my trusty tweezers, and an embellishment tool. And I also have my Scotch tape, some white embossing powder, and then also some Nouveau Deluxe adhesive. Now also in the kit, you're going to receive some watercolor paper, and this is 111 pound, perfect for coloring with the Karin markers. I loaded that into my Misty tool, and I'm going to stamp this sketchbook bouquet image actually twice using the Oreo ink. The reason I'm stamping it twice is because watercolor paper tends to be textured, and you kind of need to stamp it if you want to get a really good black impression. What I like to do with my markers before I begin is I test them out onto some scratch paper, and I'll show you that here in just a minute. I scribbled out the colors just to see what the color palette's going to look like, and especially if you're choosing colors that you have in your own stash. But thankfully, Taylor put together this great color collection. Now with the Karin markers, they are very much like a regular marker. You have that hard nib at the end, and then the liquid watercolor is in the barrel of the pen. Now what I like to do is scribble some of that color off onto a type of palette. So here I'm just using a tonic craft sheet. This is actually off of my glass media mat. I scribbled down that initial color, which is the lime green, and I'm wetting my paintbrush, picking up that color and painting my stems. Now I decided to go for a very wish-washy type of look with this sketchbook bouquet. Next, I did the same thing with the pinks, and I'm going very wish-washy. I'm not trying to stay in the lines. I actually wanted to go outside of the lines a little bit. I really liked this sketchbook feel. Now you can definitely color it very precise if that's what you choose to do. Either way would look beautiful. And as far as a palette, you could use an acetate sheet, you could use the backing of your stamp sets, any slick surface where you're able to pick up that color. Now, another thing that I really like about the Karin markers is that they can be very vibrant. So I went ahead and colored the rest of the flowers, and now I'm bringing in another layer. So the more you layer it up, the brighter this is. And very often I dip my paintbrush into my water and I'm spreading out that color so it's getting softer as it gets towards the ends of the petals. Now, another thing I found that was really cool with Taylor's palette is you can create a rainbow with these colors. So here I'm really just putting on that color, making sure I go outside of the line. So really just kind of letting this be the artistic look that I wanted to go for, and just diluting that color as it gets out towards the edges, so kind of fading off. I am being mindful of the placement of my colors. For instance, my pink next to the blue, I know if it mixes together it's going to make purple, and then the purple on top there I can mix with the pink or the blue underneath. So I was being mindful of my placement of colors. I'm also finding that this cardstock from Tailored Expressions is great for watercoloring with these markers. In the past, I have tried coloring directly onto the cardstock and spreading the color out that way, but I find a lot of times that the color likes to sink in right away to the cardstock. So by using a palette off on the side, that really helps spread that color out just a little bit better. Now I do like to come back in and add more color on top or spread that out a little bit further outside of the line. I just really wanted to go for that kind of artistic look. And the more water you add to these colors when you pick it up, or even trying to spread it out on the paper, the softer that color is going to be. So because there's less pigment, you have more water, you're going to kind of thin that color out a little bit. So really up to you how bright and vibrant you want it to be, or if you want to go for something really bright and bold. Now that one on the left is one I played with off screen, and you can see I really blended the colors together and I got this beautiful orange, kind of more of that rainbow look, which I totally fell in love with. Now the first card I'm going to make on screen here for you is using that masking stencil. So I just put a little bit of Scotch adhesive, a couple pieces on the back of it, placed it over the image, and then I lined up the Play the Angle stencil. So I'm stenciling over top of this. This is great when you want to make one layer cards or add a background to this. And I am using the pineapple ink and a blending brush to apply that. Now, honestly, I wish I would have used the lime zest. I think tying in the green would have been really nice, but I'm still happy with the pineapple. And then I can just peel up that masking stencil and I don't have any marks left behind. Now off screen, I trimmed my panel down and I layered it on top of a white cardstock cut to the same size. And then here I have a background that I had stamped off screen. This is Toffee cardstock, and I stamped the splatter background in the sugar cube ink. And there's also that line stamp image, and I'll show you that in just a minute. I stamped that on the background as well in Oreo ink. So it's just something to add a little interest to the background. And then I can just layer on a piece of white cardstock and then my watercolored panel. Off screen, I also went ahead and heat embossed a sentiment off of the stamp set, and this was on the Oreo cardstock using white embossing powder. And then I can just add that on top with some black foam squares. Now for my next card, I'm going to show you a closer look at that lined stamp image. So here's a background that I stamped on sugar cube cardstock in Oreo ink, and I'm lining up these kind of sketch lines. I really love how kind of artistically free you can be in this. Then I also went ahead and stamped a sentiment right onto the background, and I stamped it twice to make sure it kind of stands out from that background a little bit. I trimmed my panel down, and I'm adding one of my rainbow bouquets down to the corner there with some foam squares and just trimming off any of the excess of the stems. I did not have the heart to cut off those rainbow flowers, so I left them sticking off and trimmed off the very minimal amount that I needed to because they were just too pretty to cut off. To finish the card off, I'm adding a few of these silver drip drops using an embellishment tool and my Nuvo Deluxe adhesive. And I also have a double bow here that I created with the metallic twine, and I'm just adding that to the bottom of my bouquet with a little glue dot. And then for my last card, we are going to be using the Circles masking stencil. So I'm using the guidelines on the stencil and I'm lining that circle up right in the middle, holding that in place with just some low tack tape. And I'm going to ink blend this using some lime zest ink and the blending brushes. I originally thought I was going to put my bouquet right in the center. I do change my mind down the road, so I'm just inking up a portion of this. And as I ink blend in towards the center, I'm getting lighter. And then I'm going to stamp on top of this. So I took that and added it right into my Misty tool, and I am stamping that splatter background in the lime zest ink. This I was so excited about, and as I'm looking at this, this would make a great moon. So a lot of purposes for that splatter background. I'm really loving it. Now to add dimension, this is another way to add dimension to that bouquet, is die cutting it a few more times from white cardstock and layering that together. If you don't like to fiddle with foam squares or the backings, this is another great way to add that dimension. And then just adding my watercolor panel on top, and I can add this to my note card. So I did attach that to a Toffee card measuring 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. I stamped the splatter background in Toffee ink as well. And then just adding a few of the little silver drip drops around my bouquet. And there we have it, 3 card ideas using the new Field Notes 2 card kit. I hope you enjoyed today's video. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I'll see you again real soon.